Hey, it's Mazzy here, and I want to talk about the bootleg dilemma. This video is a response to my own video. Did a video which I assume most of you who are watching this saw that video on Eric Clapton and when did Eric Clapton become a wanker. Now, I got a lot of response. I got literally 100 times more response than I thought I would for that video. Some people felt it was a clickbait headline title for a video. Those of you who watch me for many years know that I love the word wanker and I use it frequently, usually to talk about the Wanker brothers, Noel and Liam Gallagher brothers. And I say it with love in a way, about just brothers who are wankers like Oasis. The bootleg thing is a complicated device, release, phenomena in terms of music. I understand the idea of intellectual property and the protection of one's creations. I work with photographers. That's part of my business. I understand it. I went in a rant mode. It was kind of a fun mode in the moment. I don't regret it. And in fact, I still stand by everything I said. But I want to follow up on that and talk about bootlegs in general and talk about those specific things. Now, I literally got, at this point, almost 800 comments on it. And I would say 80 or 85% of them were positive and supportive. Now, I don't need people to support me. This is one man's opinion. Anyone else can have an opinion, obviously, and post whatever they want. And then I had about maybe 15, 20% of people who thought I was way off base. There was a handful of people that don't appreciate when I say fuck. Is it a device that I don't need to do? Probably, but it works. It's a good word. Fuck is a good word when you're trying to, well, you know what I'm talking. I don't need to teach you that because you've probably used it before. Now, the crux to that video, if you haven't seen it, I suggest look at it, is that the publishing company or the record company in Germany sued this woman because she would not take down a $11 CD she had from her left to her when her husband passed away and put it on eBay. Now, I know in America, eBay, Discogs, they have rules against selling bootlegs. And if it was me, I would have pulled it down and dealt with it otherwise. She didn't pull it down and she basically said, you know, screw you, sue me. And they sued her and she lost. And so she has to pay $4,000 in legal fees back to Clapton. Now, that's the detail. And I had a number of people explaining to me that's what happened. That's the detail. And I got it all wrong, that Eric Clapton doesn't just troll around eBay looking for people stealing his music. And I believe that's the case in a way. But here's my point on that, and then I'll get into this, is that you can be bigger than this. You can be a bigger man. You can be an artist that understands the scale of things. Some will say, wait a second, if you let one person sell a bootleg, another person's going to sell a bootleg. But instead of going after this one person, I understand the difference between bootlegs and counterfeits. Now, here's a good example. See this? Okay, this is a real Beatles mono CD that Apple, Capitol, Universal Music put out several years ago. Did you know there are literally thousands of counterfeit copies of this from Russia or China? And you might even have a counterfeit. If you bought it on eBay, if you bought it somewhere else, there's a counterfeit. I totally understand going after manufacturers of this when it's an identical item competing with something that's in the stores. The whole idea of bootlegs, and maybe I'll just kind of go into a small portion of my collection. Yes, I do own bootlegs, and I bet you a lot of you music fans have some bootlegs in your collection. Goes back to 1969, 1970 with a version of these records, The Great White Wonder. Bob Dylan's Great White Wonder, Trademark of Quality was one of the labels, one of the first sort of big bootleg labels out of Los Angeles that put out Dylan things from the Basement tapes and then a series of live albums. But GWW became sort of this moniker brand. And in a way, Dylan fought it. And eventually Columbia put out, was it 1974, 75, the Basement tapes. They finally issued. There's a thirst for these recordings. Now, it takes away from the artist. If it's a counterfeit, yes. I would argue that it, it elevates what the audience wanted. And it got Dylan to put out the Basement Tapes. This, okay? Dylan and the band, Big Pink, publishing demos, the Basement Tapes. It pushed the artist to put this out. I think that's the way to tackle this kind of situation. In 1974, I believe, 73, 74, these came out. Kind of a greatest hits bootleg series of Beatles. Now, this is something I don't condone more, that I don't support more, because as a collector, I bought them, of course. But these were sort of a greatest hit. There was no like Beatle box kind of overview of greatest hits at the time. I don't like when they copy studio things and putting out. To me, that's the real damage, bootlegs going after artists and replacing actual sales from catalog items. So the Beatles finally reacted, Capitol finally reacted in the States and put out these two albums as a result. Okay, that's totally fair. I mean, of course they should put out whatever they want. Now, but there's a thirst for that. We know that, again, not only with the Great White Wonder, Dylan was one of the most bootlegged artists around. Royal Albert Hall, Zimmerman one. Finally, Bob Dylan embraced this and started with the whole series of bootleg. I think we're up to 16, 17 volumes now over the years. The Royal Albert Hall, the bootleg series number 66, that concert, heavily bootleg before. The Basement Tapes, finally put out after decades, fully and curated and well done. Fans would have just creamed over these kind of things back in the day. But now we have these artists that embrace it. Now, I had a huge bootleg collection. In 1995, I sold a percentage of my albums, 2,000 albums, to Amoeba Records in Berkeley. Amoeba hadn't opened yet in San Francisco on Haight Street. And I had a lot of Led Zeppelin bootlegs. I had Rolling Stones bootlegs, obviously Dylan, the Beatles. I kept the Dylan and the Beatles. I had Pink Floyd bootlegs, and I had some Springsteen bootlegs. Some artists embrace it today. Bruce Springsteen now, you can go to his website and download live shows. They've monetized it. They made good versions of it. You can even get like a CD-R. I bought this from the Springsteen site. This is the West Hollywood Roxy Theater show, one of the most famous live broadcasts and great performances of Bruce Springsteen. This and the Winterland show I've gotten because I just love Springsteen. I love these shows. A lot of them digitally, but this is the way to go. You know, he didn't sue artists. He didn't sue someone for selling bootleg. Led Zeppelin had bootlegs, one of which the BBC sessions. They finally, after many decades, put this out. Rolling Stones finally jumped on the bandwagon in the last, decade or so, putting out a series of these live vault series. Vault series is a good way of doing it. Embrace this instead of just suing a woman selling a $10, $11 CD. Now, I get that. Now, a couple people replied to me when I said, someday I'm going to sell my entire collection here with I probably have 150 bootlegs of Lennon and the solo Beatles, the Beatles, Dylan. That's probably it in terms of my bootlegs. I used to have Jimi Hendrix bootlegs that I sold, and they're going to be within my collection. And someone said, well, they should just give away. Well, no, I'm not going to give away. I don't know. Whoever gets my collection, and I have an idea who's going to get it, we're going to sell them. They're going to sell them. When I sold the recent Coleman collection, there was about 40, 50 bootlegs. Some of those were sold to people who bought from the Coleman collection, my friend who passed away this past year. There are stores I know in the YouTube vinyl community that showcase records online, and they're constantly showing bootlegs that have in their store. Old bootlegs from the 70s and 80s, which command a lot of money now, actually. There's a large store here in Seattle that recently bought a collection. They have about 200 bootlegs, including Hendrix and Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Yes and the usuals, Beatles and Stones and Dylan, and they're for sale in the store. Hopefully they don't get raided, but they're selling them in the store, records that have been in collections for 20, 30, 40 years. Amongst my Beatle, 1970, walking down Hollywood Boulevard, I bought Come Back, Kumback, the Beatle Glyn Johns mix. Came out various versions of it. This is the second volume of it. Then there was Sweet Apple Tracks, one of the more famous of the Beatle bootleg. I think these are 2 out of the 3 volumes that came out. Then in the CD era, bootleg companies were shaming the record companies. This is something like 17 CDs worth of Get Back sessions. Now we have a release finally of a lot of the outtakes. Now, we don't have everything. Of course, you don't want everything. With all the Nagra beeps on these are from the Nagra tapes for the most part. You don't want all this stuff. This is for the crazy collector like me and everything, but we have them. And finally, Apple and the Beatles put out a version of their own. In my Beatle collection, I have 30, 40 John Lennon bootlegs. I don't know if you know this or not, but in the 1970s, John Lennon collected Beatle bootlegs. He went out and bought Beatle bootlegs and John Lennon bootlegs. He had his assistant at the time buy bootlegs. He thought they were hysterical. He wanted to hear this stuff. I've read a lot of articles. I've seen a lot of artists pick up talking about bootlegs of art. It's something they embrace. The thing with Eric Clapton, it just makes him look small. It makes him look small. And of course, if people said it's the publishing company, it's the record company, it's the laws there, he could have intervened and said, look, we're going to just take care of this. I'll send you an autograph thing, take it off eBay, do something. But I think it turned into this whole mess. And believe me, I'm not the only one who was ranting about this situation. And then I got another set of criticism for bringing up the vaccine issue. Now, that's not what this video is about. My point on that is that these very well-to-do rock artists like Van Morrison and Eric Clapton couldn't tour for a year and a half or so. Well, I feel sorry for them. Embrace it. I know so many musicians. I know a lot of other bands and people who are working with bands, and they had a rougher time than Van Morrison or Eric Clapton. And they made do with merchandise, with live streams. And to Eric Clapton's credit, he did do a live stream and a kind of a lockdown video. I think it's a Blu-ray and a DVD. And he's monetizing it. And he's making some money on it, I guess. I don't know how much of a thirst there is for Eric Clapton bootleg, because I've never owned an Eric Clapton bootleg. I've never owned a Cream bootleg, a Blind Faith bootleg, a Derek and Domino's bootleg. His bootlegs don't interest me personally. Now, again, people are asking me what I'm going to do with those records. Every record I showed in that rant video, I'm keeping. I love that music. I love the Cream albums. I like Blind Faith. I love Layla. And obviously the Delaney and Bonnie. And the first couple of solo albums I do enjoy. So I'm keeping those. Some people got upset that I was plopping the records down. Records aren't as fragile as people. I drop them like this. They make a loud thunk when they're on the floor, and that's it, Here's a few other things, since I'm here. People embracing it. I did have some King Crimson records. King Crimson has been doing this series of, what are they called here? Audio diary series with their live performances. They're putting this stuff out, in this case, I think mostly on compact disc because it's cheaper and you can get press time. It's hard to get press time, obviously, in vinyl these days. So they're putting it out. The fans want these things. A lot of artists are doing download things. Are people thirsting for the live Clapton stuff? I don't know. I'm not one of them. I bought this on eBay. This is Danger Mouse Presents the Grey Album Remastered. This is Jay-Z's Black Album and the Beatles' White Album, a mashup by Danger Mouse. Now, this is a bootleg. I'm surprised this is still around. And I've heard even, I think it was McCartney talk about it on one interview, a snippet. He thought it was really interesting. They didn't go after the eBay seller I bought this from, and I've seen this in stores over the last few years. I think I got this 5 years ago. It's hysterical. It's a cool mashup, and it probably introduced the Beatles to a lot of younger people, or a lot of people who are into rap, and I think it's really interesting, that too. Obviously, you got Prince, the Black Album, embracing it, putting a for sale version out. Now we got, finally, after how many years, you probably have seen that famous video of Neil Young walking to a record store, and he sees bootlegs in a record store, and there's a video following him around, and he kind of confronts the store owner. Doesn't sue him. I think he just walks, as I recall, he walks out with the records. He takes them off the shelves. That's hysterical. Had it on video. He's emulating these 1970 bootleg covers with this. What are they calling this? The original bootleg series. Okay. Artists embrace the bootleg things in different ways. I do understand piracy. I'm not a fan of piracy. That's not my intention. And if I want to do a rant and get a little excited in a way and express myself in a video like that, I will do it, and I have done it. I don't do it very often around here, to be honest with you. I do respect the artist's music. Obviously, I buy a lot, and I probably, if I say this, I'm going to get jumped all over all as well, as I paid more. I probably renovated a kitchen for Paul McCartney over the years with all the Beatle-related things I've purchased, multiple copies, and not to justify buying bootlegs, but in a way, you know, I'd rather have the real deal than the bootleg. And I don't really buy bootlegs anymore because artists are putting out these archive series, which I think are fabulous. In closing, I'm going to show this book. This is a highly recommended book, and this came out just a few months ago. And it's called The Underground Story of a Legendary Bootleg Record Label, A Pig's Tale. And this is about trademark equality, the bootleg company, and it goes through their entire catalog, the entire history of the records, how they looked, the story of how they were pressed, where they were pressed. And it's really a fabulous historical archival document. Obviously, I don't have every bootleg by the Beatles or Dylan, but I have a nice representation. Are they good quality? Usually not. Occasionally, yes, but it's about the performance. And now, if we can get better performances in these archive releases, all the power to it. But again, the whole video started because this whole situation with a woman getting sued and owing $4,000. And, you know, I'm going to do that liberal thing or that right-wing thing. Actually, both sides, you know. She tried to stick it to the man, and the man stuck it back her, and she owes $4,000. I don't know what's going to become of that story. I just think it tarnished Eric Clapton, even if he wasn't specifically personally involved. You can make it work. You can make it right. I can't see Bruce Springsteen doing that. I can't see Paul McCartney doing that, for that matter. Now, I'm sure McCartney and Springsteen protect everything they own. Of course, maybe now, with Springsteen selling his catalog, maybe Sony will jump on bootleggers. But I don't think that's his big thing now, in Springsteen's case, especially because he's offering downloads of his live shows. And people collect and love those live shows of Bruce Springsteen. The Hammersmith Odeon came out a few years ago, and they just put out the nuclear concert, whatever that's called. So I just want to say thanks for watching, and if you had a good time with liking, I know a good time is the right appropriate word, that rant, so be it. I'm not going to do those a lot. Again, I was surprised at how many people watched it in 2 days. I mean, a shitload, 25,000. And how many people commented on it. I can't comment and respond to everyone, but I did read every single comment. And after a while, just doing hearts and ups or whatever responses, I could say the same things. So hopefully you're watching this, and I'm saying thank you for watching, thank you for commenting. And I don't remove any negative comments. Someone accused me of, if they didn't agree with me, the comments are removed. I've never done that. The only comments, I've probably, in 4 years, removed 10 comments. And those are people saying really vicious things about myself or other people or people who have been on my videos as guests, misogynist, homophobic, violent rants, and vicious things, those kind of things. Now, you know, I think Eric Clapton can take my ranting. I'm no one compared to him, obviously, but it's one man's opinion. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And Mazzy loves you.